This video is brought to you by Skillshare, an online learning community with thousands of classes for creators. Explore new skills, deepen existing passions, and get lost in your own creativity. As a Dota player and internet entrepreneur, I have really enjoyed delving into classes that have to do with interpersonal skills, entrepreneurship, marketing, and productivity. I think these classes can really help anyone who works on the internet. I just got done watching a class called Powerful Storytelling today. Strategies for Crafting Great Content by Soledad O'Brien. She has been a journalist, reporter, and anchor for 30 years. Trust me, I am famous for my horrendous storytelling. And one point she made that really resonated with me was the order and manner in which you present your facts grabs the attention of the reader more than the facts themselves. You have to gain interest, develop an attachment with the readers, and engage your audience. Something I have to do every day as a Twitch streamer. Skillshare is curated for learning. There are no ads, and new classes are launched all the time. It is less than $10 a month if you go for the annual subscription. Make sure to click the link below in the description to sign up. The first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link will get a free premium trial membership. Don't miss this chance to explore your creativity.
Banana slam jam.
Without further ado, we are going to talk to you guys about Phantom Lancer. I know you guys have been asking for hero guides. It's been a long time, but don't worry. Here we are, back in action. They're going to be delivered. And I promise you, moving forward, that they will continue to come out. So, PL. He's one of my favorite heroes. He's one of my most played heroes. As you see here, I have 351 games on the hero. And what I love most about PL is that almost any game is carryable. So we'll talk more about what a good PL game is later on in this video. But for now, we're going to talk about how I feel about PL in general. So what makes PL so unique is that he's the one hero that spawns a bajillion illusions. But compared to other illusion heroes, the thing about PL is since he's continuously spawning illusions, that these illusions are based on him. So what I mean by that is if you enter the fight as, say, Naga Siren or Terrorblade, all your stuff's full HP. If they nuke Terrorblade down to half HP, it doesn't really affect his illusions all that much because his illusions are basically separate entities, right? Like you have to worry about the damage they do and all that stuff. But as PL, because your illusions are low duration, constantly being created, PL is actually all about his main hero, even though he's an illusion hero. Because if his main hero is at half health, all the illusions he spawns are at half health or less and continuously get easier and easier to destroy. So the reason so behind that is the idea that the most important thing about PL is learning to find the real one, and also as a PL player, learning to disguise the real one, making sure that any fight you start with, you losing like half your HP, he's similar to Morph, where if he gets initiated onto and loses most of his HP, or like in case of Morph, he has to Strength Morph, the hero is incredibly underwhelming. Usually he spends the entire fight running away. However, if PL gets the jump on you, suddenly he has 9 or 10 full of HP illusions, and you can't find the real hero. Every illusion you kill, he's just going to spawn a new one. PL suddenly becomes unmanageable. He just takes over the entire game, takes over the entire fight. So that's what I like about PL, as the uniqueness of the hero, and it kind of goes into the items that counter him. Items like Shivas and Radiance are really the two hardest counters to PL, not as much the Battle Fury. Mjolnir's okay. Battle Fury is obviously fine, but it's less about killing the illusions as it is to find the real one and target it down. And the thing about Radiance is that it continuously wears the real one down. And the thing about Shivas is that the vision plus damage mitigation allows you to have time, and the nuke damage from the Shivas offers you information to find the real one. So that's why conceptually PL is countered a lot differently than other illusion heroes. But obviously he's an illusion hero nonetheless, so we're going to go ahead and talk about his skills. So when it comes to PL, we're going to talk about the skill build. We're going to talk about what each one of his abilities represents. So I would say, it's safe to say, that you're going to be maxing your Phantom Rush every single game by level 7. That's the goal. Occasionally, I'll put a second point, maybe a third point in my Spirit Lance, but usually that's when I have like Keeper of the Light, and I'm like trying to spam the Lance in lane as a way to actually win the lane. But the thing about every point you put into Spirit Lance or Doppelganger, is one less point you're putting in Phantom Rush. And if you're looking at the scaling of Phantom Rush, you know, the cooldown being 4 seconds at max level, and the boost actually lasts for 2 seconds. I don't even think it says that on here. Terrible tooltip. That means that the uptime of this bonus agility is just massive once you get to level 7. You're basically sitting with like an extra 40 agility, 44 agility every time you're hitting a creep. So what these abilities represent: CS securing and maybe a bit of harass, survivability, and then just efficient trading and maybe efficient CSing as well. That's what these represent in the early game. The confusing thing about PL is that unlike a lot of other heroes, he has 3 skills that can all be leveled level 1, all do very different things, and if leveling the wrong skills could possibly cost you drastically. I would say by level 3, most games, I have 1-1-1. I would say my skill build sometimes looks like 1-0-2 or 0-1-2. But other than that, I can't really think of any other skill orientation that this hero would have. His Phantom Rush is where you're not afraid to use it to rush up to the range creep. But if you're against any hero that threatens you at the range creep, then Lance is strictly better. So both of those are used to secure the range creep. It's just a matter of how safe you feel doing it. And then your Doppelganger is used or is leveled level 1 when you have to either purge something, say like a Venogale, or you have to evade something like a Tusk tag team that I've been seeing a lot of in this patch, or like an Earth Spirit roll or anything like that. And that's what Doppelganger is used for. But Doppelganger doesn't actually help you secure any CS. So it has to be under the premise that by dodging whatever this skill is, I'm going to get more CS. And so the whole thought of that continues into the second level. Based on whatever you leveled first level, if you need the survivability of Doppelganger, you take it. If you don't, you take either Spear Lance or Phantom Rush that you didn't take. And then, like I said, after we've gotten past the 1-1-1, I'd say at level 4, I always have 1-1-2. That's like where we can all meet at the same point here. We're going to go to 1-1-4. And the idea of PL is that in most of his lane matchups, he has a way to secure range creep, he has survivability mechanic, and he has a decent trading ability. So the one thing I love about PL is he's a really reliable laner, if played properly. The problem with PL is that he has pretty low HP pool, and there's certain heroes that counter him really hard. Stuff like Timbersaw. Even something like Underlord that you can hardly do any damage to in lane because of the AoE damage mitigation. Usually any heavy damage mitigation or like strong AoE in lane is really annoying for PL. But it's not about the illusion clear that makes PL a problem, or like that gives PL problems. It's the fact that they can constantly nuke you. So something like a Legion, I really don't have all that much issue with, because once I get level 6, I can send my illusions at her all the time, and she doesn't really fight back well against me other than overwhelming odds, for instance. However, with Underlord, he sticks his Firestorm on top of the creep wave, and there's no counterplay I can make. So the heroes that PL is best against, because of what I talked about with his abilities, is that he wants to be able to farm once he gets level 6 and 7. 6 and 7 are like his huge power spikes. So the heroes that can bully him away despite getting these level 6 and 7 power spikes are the best heroes against PL. Timbersaw, Underlord, even like Puck offlane, Leshrac offlane. These are the heroes that give you the most issues. On the other hand, heroes that have like one nuke but don't necessarily have a lot of AoE are his best matchups. You know, like Beastmaster, Doom, Legion Commander. Sand King's a bad matchup. Sand King's a really bad one. I like him against Mars. I like him against heroes like Lycan. Any summons heroes that are single target damage I really like. Pango's really scary. Pango's one of his hardest counters, whether it's an offlaner or a mid. Pango is probably, at least in the current patch, but across a lot of patches, one of the most unplayable matchups for PL. And it's all because once PL gets this level 6, these heroes can either threaten him with consistent harass and control the lane, or because they can actually just kill him. Anyways, for Pango's example, he can just kill him. So that's what PL likes to do. He likes to create space between himself and the opponent by continuously sending illusions at them, bullying them away once he gets level 6, and up until that point, his job is to sustain. So a lot of PL's items are just, you don't go like early boots. You go like either one Wraithband or straight wand into like the Glove of Haste component of your treads, into the Band of Elvenskin component of your treads. Because boots just don't really mean much to any hero with a natural gap close who's primarily focused on trading and also has a escapability mechanic. Boots just don't matter that much in most situations. So all we want to do is make him hit harder, faster, and trade a bit better. So all of his early items are all about that. Once you get to level 6, it's all about just acceleration. It's all about getting either the Hood, which allows you to continue farming your lane if you otherwise couldn't against heroes like Venomancer, is like a primary example, or going for the Diffusal, which is a accelerator in the sense that it burns the mana of creeps, so it makes you farm a lot faster, but also because there's certain heroes that can bully you away when they have mana, but they can't bully you away when they don't have mana. So an example of this would be like Anti-Mage. If I don't have a Diffusal yet, and I'm trying to farm it like 13 minutes into the game, Anti-Mage can like blink on me and hit me and burn my mana. But if I have Diffusal, he's never going to do that, because he's going to lose all of his mana in the process. So that's one example of like many that PL buys Diffusal in order to bully people away from himself. The other option is to go like Yasha into Manta, then into Diffusal. But one thing I'll tell you is you buy a Diffusal every fucking game. Excuse me. I've tried it without it. It just doesn't work. So it's a matter of when you buy that Diffusal, and it's a matter of how powerful that Diffusal makes you when you're just farming. Because even though you buy a Diffusal, you're not like a Ricky where you're going to go look for kills now. You're still going to be hitting creeps. So it's not about like who I can kill with this Diffusal. It's about who can't fuck with me anymore because I have this Diffusal. So coming down to this farming stage of the game, after we've hit level 7 and onward, we have to consider whether or not we're going to max Doppelganger or whether or not we're going to max Spear Lance. Doppelganger accelerates your farming by you're creating illusions and rushing into camps. It also accelerates your farming in the sense that it's a survivability mechanic that you can get away from people, and you can also go over cliffs and stuff to get to places faster. But then it doesn't really help you much if you're ever fighting people. So between these two skills, it really comes down to how much I plan to be fighting people, or I have to plan to push people away from me. You know, how much are they going to be up in my face? Doppel is really good if I want to fight them, but I don't mind being point blank range. Like if I get that Diffusal, I don't mind doppling on top of somebody and hitting them. While on the other hand, the maxing of the Spirit Lance means that I am thinking I'm going to have to fight them, but I can't be on top of them. They're heroes like Timber, Lesh, Tidehunter, Pango. Like I can't doppel on top of these heroes. They're just going to kill me. So in that case, maxing your Spirit Lance, but knowing you also have to fight is really important because it actually does contribute a decent amount of damage. The movement speed slow is decent. The damage itself is 280 on a single target. And then the illusion duration of 8 seconds that's burning their mana consistently is not bad at all for a carry's contribution at level 8 or 9, if we're talking about maxing Spirit Lance before maxing your Doppelganger. So I pretty much choose to max one or the other. I hardly ever do like 2-2 or like 3-2. I usually either 4-1-4 or 1-4-4. That's most of the time, because usually you're choosing like a specific idea. Doppelganger scales really well in cooldown, and then Spirit Lance scales really well in comparison to Doppelganger if you don't care about the Doppelganger cooldown. So when it comes to talents, level 10, the evasion is really nice against any summons hero, such as Beastmaster Lycan. It's also really nice against any carry who tries to counter you with Battle Fury, or basically just doesn't buy Maelstrom. MKB is not really an item that's good against PL, because it doesn't offer any illusion clear. So you don't really go the evasion against heroes you're concerned about buying MKB. In the current patch right now, MKB is not very good. In future patches where you guys may be watching this video, that may be the case. But it's mainly about Maelstrom. Maelstrom is an item that deals with PL, and it offers, at the current moment, 30% True Strike. So if I'm against like a Weaver who buys Maelstrom, or a Jug who buys Maelstrom, that kind of stuff, I don't really bother with its evasion talent. I don't think it's worth it, because it's just 30% less effective. So the idea is the evasion talent makes you way more survivable as the game goes on, while the attack speed talent really accelerates your farm in the short term. It's a huge acceleration because every bit of attack speed PL gets, not only is he increasing the amount of times he's attacking so that he can create more illusions, but his illusions also are more likely to trigger more illusions, which then allows you to leave camps faster. It allows you to spend less resources to clear a creep wave, may allow like a Manta to clear waves faster, that kind of stuff. Overall, your whole presence on the map and damage output on creeps as well as heroes is drastically increased by every little bit of attack speed. 15 is not all that much, but so if you don't need the evasion, I do take the attack speed. So there have been games where I've been experimenting with the Ags Shard. I've tried the Octarine core. There are games for it. Mainly games where you can never really commit on the opponent. but they're really 5-man heavy. Say they have like a DP Tidehunter. Those are the games where like the Spirit Lance CD as well as Octarine Core are really nice because you do a lot of damage, but the whole idea of this build is to like poke people down to the point where they run out of mana, and then you can engage on them. But if that's not the type of dynamic of the game, I don't think the build's very good. So just keep in mind that the Spirit Lance cooldown talent is pretty much exclusively for that build if you're planning to go it. And that build, like I said, is for the situation where they 5-man pretty hard and you can't really commit early on in the fight. Otherwise, the health talent's quite nice. I think I've always taken the Phantom Rush range. It's just too good. Phantom Rush range, 900. You know, if we do some quick radii math here, you go from 900 to 1250. 9 squared's 81. 12 and a half squared's like 155. So you go from 81 pi of the area you can encompass to 155 pi. So you literally double the range in which you can rush people. Or like double the AoE of people that you can rush. If you didn't follow along with that, just letting you know, the Phantom Rush range basically makes the area that you can rush somebody twice as large. So it's pretty fucking good. Until they nerf the shit out of that talent, you don't take the other one. It's just too good. When it comes to 25, it really comes down to whether or not you have damage issues or whether or not you need to be more elusive. I'd say I've taken about equal on both these talents. The Doppelganger CD used to be like 7 seconds. It used to be crazy. And the Critical Strike hasn't really been nerfed all that much. Critical Strike works on your illusions. So it's 24% damage, literally, to you as a hero. So, and it could be potentially more because of the way damage block works and all that kind of stuff for your illusions. So I would say because of damage block, the 24% critical strike is more like 30 to 35% damage bonus if you include all the damage from your illusions. So it really comes down to whether or not you want damage to burst targets down that you're struggling with, or whether or not you want to take longer, drawn-out fights where you're continuously disjointing and resetting the fight. That talent used to be way better than Doppelganger CD, not only because it was a 3-second cooldown, but also because you could cast Doppelganger during roots. But now you can't. So, pretty important there. So when it comes to items, there's a little bit of variance, as I said. You pretty much always go treads. I've been trying Midas a little bit because of the attack speed being really nice. Kind of TBD on the Midas. I know I like on this guide, I'm supposed to give you some comprehensive thing. Midas is nice in the sense that it's like similar to a Yasha that doesn't give you move speed, but then it delays your next items because, you know, you don't have a Yasha towards your Manta. But at the same time, the attack speed's really nice, makes you farm way faster. And as long as you don't need either sustain or the threat of defusal, Midas seems to make a lot of sense right now, at least in the current patch. So it's a worthwhile consideration when you choose between Yasha, Hood, Midas, and Defusal. Defusal's, as we talked about, the aggressive option that allows you to bully people away from your farming area. Hood is the one that allows you to sustain and farm against certain heroes. You're not looking to kill them, but they don't kill you anymore. Like if I like, there's games where I've been forced to rotate mid against like an Ember Spirit at like 9 minutes in, and that guy would just bully me out of lane and push me into the jungle. But because I have a Hood, I can actually lane against him. That's an example of what Hood's good for. Yasha is just kind of like the all-around efficiency item, while Midas is the greedier efficiency item. So that's kind of your first choice. Once you have, but at some point you're going to buy Defusal. I would say latest second item, you know, Hood, Defusal, Yasha, Defusal, Midas, Defusal. If you delay it much more than that, it's very, very greedy. So very rarely do I ever do something different than that. But that takes a lot of PL games for you to kind of know, like, okay, maybe I can try that out. You're going to be either doing Sanj and Yasha or Manta. So as I talked about with PL, his main focus is finding the real one and disguising the real one. The thing about Manta is, if it doesn't really save your real hero, it's a shitty item on PL. Like, if you're dealing with Leshraks and Pangos and these AoE heroes that don't have roots, Hux, Quap, Veno, Pangolier, Manta doesn't really do much most of the time. Because you spawn your Manta illusions and they just kill those two. Those are the games where you buy SNY, most of the time. But if you think that Manta will help keep your real PL alive, that's when you go Manta. That's pretty much my deciding factor between Manta and Sanj and Yasha. After that, the best item for PL across all patches is Heart. Like, that's the item you want to go. Previous patch, Heart was a shitty item. Right now, it's a pretty good item. Most PLs are going Heart around there. Obviously, if heart is a unpurchasable item in whatever patch you're watching this video, you probably shouldn't buy it. But if heart is a viable item, PL will almost always buy it. For the same idea that we talked about. PL is all about keeping his real hero at as full health as possible. And heart synergizes with that really well. Other options are Scotty against like ranged heroes that you want to slow down, or heavy heal heroes like Timbersaw Alk. Abyssal against like the Storm Spirits of the world that you can burst down pretty quickly, burn a lot of their mana. These elusive carries like Anti-Mage, Abyssal's really nice against. And then we have considerations like Butterfly. We have considerations like I've gone Blink Dagger, Silver Edge in the past, back when it gave all stats. It's a pretty shitty item right now. Let's pull up our other items. MKB, if you absolutely need True Strike for your illusions. I've seen Rapier pretty much never go Radiance. We talked about the Octarine core build. Mage Slayer's a dog shit item in literally every facet of the game since its release, so we don't even consider that item. Don't ask me about it. It sucks. Future patches, it might be good. You might be seeing me build it because they buff the shit out of it. I'm like, hey, cool, it's a great item. Because in theory, it would fit PL pretty nicely. But it blows. So don't buy it now. Let's see. Ags Scepter in the current iteration is absolute trash. I assume they're going to rework it. So, you know, as of the you know, if you've watched this video, you're starting to play PL. It's like 5 months from now, and they've reworked Ags Scepter. At the current moment, it spawns all your illusions. It like kills all of your illusions and resummons them on a 60-second cooldown. Absolute dog shit ability. Just terrible. You can try it if you want, if you don't believe me. The Ag Shard is actually better. It's the old Ags kind of dumbed down a little bit, but mainly the fact that the Spirit Lance illusion damage is increased by 30%, which makes it go from 20 to 50%, which means it's 2.5 times as much damage. It's a lot of fucking damage. It actually kills people, kills supports. So, and it also increases the cast range and then synergizes with the Octarine core. I don't only go the Ag Shard when I get Octarine core, but like if I'm all inning the concept, the Ag Shard is like a must. So, other items to consider. AC, if you're against like an ET specifically, but that's about it. BKB, if you just absolutely, it doesn't matter, you're never concealing the real PL. You just have to be able to stand your ground against the Leshraks, the Venos, the Vipers, this like ridiculous AoE magic damage, and you just cannot sustain through it. BKB is an item that I've purchased on PL. Lincoln Sphere, not the most common item on PL, but it's worth considering. It's a stat item. Right now, it's not that great. I wouldn't buy it right now, but I've bought it in the past. It's a stat item that, you know, gives you a little bit of survivability. So it's worth considering, but I'd say most games you're not going for it. And aside from that, it's pretty much all stat items, right? So it's either items that lock people down or it's stat items. For True Strike, I usually go Rapier over something like the Bloodthorn, just because people at that point usually have some way to remove the Bloodthorn. But it's worth considering if you're against a hero like Storm, where you have to silence them. Nullifier is kind of okay on PL, but I've realized in the past that anytime I have to buy Nullifier, it just feels shitty. So usually I just look to like take longer fights and maybe buy an Abyssal Blade and bring down targets that way. Any item that doesn't offer stats or like damage to your illusions feels like absolute shit for PL. I try to avoid them at all costs. So Nullifier being one of those items that just gives raw damage, doesn't benefit your illusions at all, doesn't give any attack speed. So yeah, that's really it for the items. When it comes to neutral items, I guess we'll talk about the current iteration. Jelly's amazing. The Possessed Mask is fantastic. Broom Handle's pretty good because it makes all your illusions attack from further range. But if I had to choose, I'd rather have stat items. All agility heroes love this item. Imclaw is amazing on Peel. The cooldown is separate for every illusion, so every illusion you spawn gets that extra little 30% crit damage, which is really nice damage item. Dragon Scale applies on illusions, so that's also an amazing item for PL. Nether Shell is really nice. In certain games, you're a pretty high armor hero that suffers against magic damage. And then I would say Quicksilver Amulet, it does work on your illusions. Amazing for speeding up your farm. It's basically a second Yasha in that regard, other than the agility component. And then Vambrace. Those are like my top 5. I'd say if I had to rate them, it'd be like Imclaw first, Quicksilver second, or those are probably tied for first. Dragon Scale, or Vambrace third, Dragon Scale fourth, Aquila fifth. That's probably where I'd put these. In terms of tier 3, Titan Sliver's really nice. Elven Tunic's really nice. Cloak of Flames is okay, depending on the game. It does work on all your illusions. Paladin Sword goes really well if you have SNY and or... Oh, an item I forgot to mention is Satanic. You used to buy it a lot. There was a debate between whether or not buying Satanic and Heart. Ever since they removed status resistance, this item just does nothing for your illusions in comparison to Heart. So, they like replace the status resistance with damage, and raw damage doesn't work on illusions. So, for the most part, Satanic kind of is just a shit item right now. But in the future, like Heart and Satanic are kind of interchangeable. Depends on which one's better in whatever given patch. Like 2 patches ago, PLs were always going Satanic and never buying Heart. But yeah, I'd say the Titan Sliver is probably the best. These Titan Sliver, Elven Tunic, Paladin Sword, Cloak of Flames probably the best. This one's okay because it gives attack speed. I don't really like this one that much because it doesn't benefit your illusions. Tier 4, Illusionist Cape, obviously. Leveler, great. Trickster Cloak, great. Pretty much all the carry items. This item's pretty shit though. Don't take this one. Oddly enough, it's really shit. And we're not going to worry about tier 5s. So yeah, those are items and skill builds for PL. We're going to go into a couple replay examples now for PL. So when it comes to starting items for PL, my starting items either include a wand, because I think I need to use my lance a lot to secure range creeps, or a stick, excuse me. And I also think the opponent's going to cast a decent amount of spells. So in this case, I'm against a Mars off lane. Mars is really good at punishing you if you go for the range creep. So I want to be able to use my lance. And then my stick is because I know he's going to be using his W a lot as well. So it's like a combination of like early game, I want this stick such that I can utilize that lance to secure range creeps. Otherwise, I'll just go like some regen. I'll consider a ring of regen if I'm going hood against like Venos and Vipers in my starting items. And otherwise, I just go like the Quelling Blade stat items, you know, Slipper of Agility into 2 branches, 2 tangos, that kind of stuff. A generic like sustain trading items on PL. That's all it really is. So PL has really only one playstyle in lane. Because he can choose his engagements with Phantom Rush, because he's pretty weak level 1 overall, like his stats are, like his skills are really important to him, and he doesn't really have like decent, he doesn't have great raw stats, like his HP pool is pretty low to work with and all that. You pretty much always defensively aggro. So anytime you see creeps that are like in dangerous areas, you just defensively aggro them. When you watch PL, they're pretty much always defensively aggroing, just drawing attention or drawing themselves away from the creeps, away from the enemy heroes, and CSing under their tower. Lane equilibrium is super important for PL, more so than other carries. Because of that. Because of how fragile he is super early. And notice how I'm getting left alone here. I'm just spinning the entire lane defensively creep aggroing. And this is something that you can really learn if you're going to be a good PL player. And notice how if he's ever CSing a creep, I can use my passive to harass him a little bit. I can also use my passive to position myself safely and try to secure a creep. But notice how pretty much everything I'm doing is avoiding the opponent unless they're hitting a creep or my teammate, and defensively aggroing. If you watch closely here, you can watch it on slow-mo since I'm fast forwarding. I'm trying to use Lance to get range creeps, but they're not really letting me, and I'm pretty much on my own here. I like this replay because my support's pretty much doing nothing. He got first blood top and then came bottom and died. So notice how I'm using defensive aggro all the time, but yet I'm just phantom rushing the opponent and forcing them to use spells to defend themselves. So in this case of the Wind Ranger, I just poked him a little bit and then backed off. PL is all about poking, but never committing. That's all PL is, the entire game. You'll just see here that I keep defensively aggroing no matter what. I'm going to take damage in the meantime. All my items are about sustain, but it's a rough lane. I've realized on PL, if I don't die before level 6 against a hero that doesn't boot me out of lane, meaning I'm not against Timbersaw, I'm not against Underlord, that my game's going to be good. So my sole purpose in the lane is to get as much as I can without dying. Seems so straightforward, but if you just defensively aggro all the time, your hero will eventually reign supreme. I said that in one of my videos where I had a pub. PL eventually comes out on top. So in this lane, I went for a Wraithband. Not something I do too much this patch, but they have a lot of physical damage. Wind Ranger has a Blightstone and she's right-clicking me a lot. Mars has an AoE physical damage spell. Not many heroes have that. So the Wraithband really pays off for the armor and trading portion. Notice how I don't really win the trades. So I lost a salve there. This lane's looking real bad. I'm going to fly myself a bunch more regen. I'm going to buy myself Raindrops, an amazing item for PL since he's so weak against magic damage early. And notice how I'm not even contesting the opponent. I'm just continuously defensively aggroing. And this is like the worst case scenario. I don't think it's hard as a carry to recognize when you're supposed to be aggressive if the opponent's like really far behind and you can just shit on them. But as any carry, I think it's really important to know what to do when the lane looks bad. And for PL, all you've been seeing is a support that's virtually done nothing, and I've just sat back, defensively creep aggroing 80% of this lane. That's what I've been doing the entire time. Dodged a spell there. You can look to predict when people are going to use that stuff. Making sure I always have regen, trying to be topped off as much as possible. His HP regen's pretty decent, and if the lane's near your tower, since he has such low HP, that aura can be really impactful for you as well. As long as the lane is near my tower, I don't care. So Mars is getting a lot out of this lane, but so am I. And notice how now that I'm level 6, here's what I can start doing. I can start running at the Mars and forcing him to defend himself. And then every time I spawn illusions, you'll see what I do if Mars comes up. So this is when PL is at his finest. Level 7's his major power spike, but anytime I'm farming, just send illusions to people. Notice how he was scared of those illusions. Now I get to bully him away. Eventually, the war of attrition will go in your favor once you start hitting level 6 and 7. So we push out the lane. Now Mars actually ends up rotating to top because we pushed him back to base. And we get to push the lane and farm the big camp. This is all PL does. Push lane, farm big camp. Push lane, farm big camp. A lot of how far you extend yourself is based on efficiency of missing the big camp or not, as well as the fear of the opponent's counterplay to you being this far up. If I'm against like a Puck or a Quap or a Storm, I'm going to be much more hesitant to be pushing this tower right now. But the safe laner's an Alk. He's not going to kill me. And the mid laner's a DP. So notice how much pressure I'm putting on this tower, but then making sure I clear the big camp every single time it spawns. This is how PL plays. This is the dream. Somebody comes back, he wants to be in a 1v1 scenario on the map. That's all PL wants. He wants 1v1s. He operates so well in 1v1s. Usually it takes 2 or 3 heroes to kill this guy. So somebody shows up, you start pressuring. You continuously push your lane in. The first step, bully the offlaner out. Second step is bully the people that come to your lane. So notice how I'm like, oh, Alk, I can't really bully this guy because Mars was down here, Alk's down here. There's this point in the game where you're like, it makes sense for them to run 3 heroes at me. It makes sense to bring 3 or 4 heroes there. And so anytime a hero TPs to my lane, even if that hero is not that great against me, in this case the Alk, that means if I go top, that there can't be 3 cores there. There cannot be like 4 heroes fucking with me because they just showed 2 bottom and then they TP'd their carry bottom. And this is the perfect opportunity that you need to look for on PL. Create 1v1s, isolate yourself from the enemy team. Make one of them deal with you at a time, like this, but then continue pressuring towers with your illusions. You can learn to attack creeps and then send your illusions at the tower. Notice what I'm doing there? I'll rewind just in case anyone missed it, because it's a very important efficiency thing to get used to on PL. Attack creeps with your real hero, send illusions at the tower. Your illusions tank the tower, but they don't do that much damage. So it's exactly what you're seeing there. They tank the tower, they keep your creeps alive. The most efficient way to push. And notice how I'm just setting up my team to push. I'm not a hero that really contributes to fights at this stage in the game. But I farm creeps really fast. I push towers pretty efficiently. And more so in the sense of tanking for them. So catapult waves are a huge timing for PL. If you can ever get level 6, by the time the 5-minute catapult gets into the tower, it's a huge opportunity to push. Otherwise, I don't do anything with the 5-minute catapult for the most part. Once PL ends up on the top half of the map, he stays here. I stay on the bottom half until I'm afraid of 3 or 4 heroes coming to my lane, and then I'm here for literally the rest of the fucking game. I'd say, like, you may see me TP bottom 1 time per game as PL. The rest of the game, top and mid, top and mid. I'm following my teammates into battle. The reason why I'm participating so much this game is because the opponent has an Alk. If the opponent carry doesn't do jack shit, PL is a lot like Jug, where most of the time the hero that kills you is the carry, like the one that offers the extra bit of damage, the Ursas, you know, these carries like the PAs that can close the gap on you. If that guy isn't a part of the game at this stage, you can do a lot more aggressive plays with your team, looking to take early objectives. That's how you punish the Alks, the anti-mages, when you're playing PL. But if they had like a Jug type hero, Ursa, I'm not participating in that mid push. That's not happening. But notice how I'm back to top, constantly run at the guy near me, force him away. That's all it is. Run at the person who's farming in front of you. Now that I've got a diffusal, that's what it's all about. Notice how I'm sweeping through their jungle. That Ags Octarine, by the way, forcing him away from me at all times. And the funny thing about PL, the reason why I showed this game is because after you bully the offlaner away and execute the be by yourself plan all game, it looks like you have virtually no impact. It looks like my kill score is 202. But notice how I briefly rotated bottom to take a tower. Now I'm back to my farming area. Anybody who's in my farming area fucks off. That's PL. You're in my farming area, you're going to fuck off. And that's how you win the game as PL. Like, this is what the dream PL game looks like. Anyone who tries to take this area from you dies. Like, it seems so simple when you watch it, but you have to set the opponent up to be separated and one at a time show up to your area and just kill them or just bully them away. You don't have to even kill them. Notice how eventually what happens when executed properly, nobody comes. Nobody shows up. I just get to hit creeps for eternity. That's all that gets to happen here. And I just tell you as a PL player that this is not an easy situation to manufacture. It is not an easy situation to force the opponent to stop messing with you. Once you have forced them to stop messing with you, you have won the game. You have absolutely won the game. And this game specifically, it happened like 16 minutes in because we just kept killing them and kept killing them. So this is accelerated. But the order of objectives is the same for PL as it is for any other carry. You play top and mid. When you're dire, you play bottom and mid. And once you can get them to stop continuously running at you, that's when PL has won the game. And so at that point, just keep farming those areas. Don't try to overextend. Don't try to invade. Just keep farming the areas according to the objectives you're taking. Notice how I took top tier 2, so now I'm migrating somewhere else. But until I take that top tier 2, I'm not looking to invade anywhere else. I'm just playing my own game. What PLs the only way you can mess up once they stop fucking with you is to overextend into their territory and die. So PL's all about keeping that distance. He's all about forcing the 1v1s. He's all about saying, if you come at me one at a time, I'm going to burn all your mana and make you fuck off. But you have to avoid those like 3 or 4 man ganks. So this was like an ideal PL game where the lane didn't go all that well, but I showed you as long as you kind of weather that early game to get to level 6, you can start creating space for yourself. So now we're going to show you a much harder PL game. I'm going to show you one that was a lot less enjoyable. But we could have won this game, actually. This game went to 42 minutes, and it actually required me to die at 38 minutes or something, where we ended up losing. This game looked unwinnable. PL is similar to Alk, where, in this regard, where some of the worst things that can happen to him is that all of his buildings die super early. PL does not do a great job deep-pushing. So Weaver can be annoying because I can't really go lane against him. He's one of the few carries that can just easily bully PL away prior to defusal. Nature's Prophet, very heavy push hero. SF, very heavy mid-game magic damage hero. So all these heroes are not good matchups for PL super early, right? So like we said, we're trying to achieve that point in the game where they fuck off, where they can't keep messing with us anymore. So notice how my items have been swapped up since I'm against Nature's Prophet, just in Tusk, a lot of physical damage, just looking to go for all those right clicks. Got salved and canceled by a tree, so already a bad start to the lane. Notice how a lot of defensive aggro once again, but I've actually got a support laning with me this time, so it's not as defensive. Good pull by my support, honestly. Defensive aggro, defensive aggro, defensive aggro. I'd test you to count how many times I've defensively aggroed in these 2 PL replays. But the thing is, I'm not going to walk up for the range creep against Nature's Prophet Tusk until I have Doppel. But in this case, I didn't take Doppel because I wanted to keep rushing up for creeps that Tusk wasn't near. So it's like, if I took Doppel, that means I could maybe go for aggressive range creeps and Doppel away from the Tusk. That's what Doppel would be used for in this specific lane. I usually want to ask myself what the Doppel does in this lane. So for this lane, if I were to have Doppel, it would only be used for Tusk's tag team. That's the only time I would ever use it. So notice how I didn't really use it early because Tusk was only level 1 and 2. But once Tusk is like level 3, 4-ish, the tag team becomes like a real threat. So that's why I waited till level 4 to get my Doppel in this specific game. Doppel will have a different purpose in every lane. But this is what PL loves doing. Randomly committing onto you when you're either alone because the support's gone or because like there's just a rare opportunity. In that case, the Witch Doctor helped me out. But this is where PL struggles. Lane pushing into his tower, he doesn't have good deep push. You guys want to understand how to help your PL? This is his weakness. For the first 15 minutes of the game, he has no deep push. Because the only way he can deep push is his literal body hitting creeps. Especially before he's level 6. What's the most useful thing that this Witch Doctor could do right now? Dude, just fucking cask and hit these creeps with me, man. Just hit the creeps, man. That's all I need from my support in these situations. This video is not meant to be an educational tutorial about BSJ bitching about his bad supports. But we need you to understand, if you're watching this video as a PL, what happens to you that's bad and what your supports can do about it. And if you're a support learning to support PL better, this is what it takes. PL wants you to play away from him unless the lane is in a spot where he can be aggressive like you saw there, or if the lane's shoved into his tower like this. Otherwise, PL wants you away from him because his main issue is deep push and maybe a +1 for aggression. His issue is not sustain. His issue is not CSing casually. His issue is not lack of survivability. Notice how in both these games, my support's been playing away from me a lot of the time. I don't want people near me. I don't really need you there. I want you to occasionally show up with a spell, hit the opponent with it, and I'll hit them with my rush plus lance, and then we'll go back to the rinse and repeat of defensive aggro. But my hero, I can't push the tower, or I can't deep push the tower. So I need my Witch Doctor to help me, but he doesn't help me. So now we're just getting this massive creep wave into my tower, and I'm getting invaded by an enemy mid. This is exactly what PL does not want. This is exactly what PL does not want. The lane shoved too hard into his tower, such that the opponent mid can just walk at him. This is the exact thing that makes a bad PL game. So if you want to know how to counter PL, push his tower, be a mid-game nuker in the mid lane, and just show up to his lane. This SF didn't do anything fancy. All he did was show up to my fucking lane. This shit's unplayable for me. What am I supposed to do about it? I can't farm against a Weaver. The Weaver's higher level than I am. He's level 6. And I can't farm here anymore. So now I'm a level 5 PL that got booted out of my lane. This is exactly a bad lane. A lot of it has to do with Witch Doctor not helping me push out the lane, as well as a few other mishaps. But in this specific game, I went for a Midas. And the reason why I went for a Midas was I saw the game going really poorly. I knew it was going to go late. I knew I couldn't relieve any of the pressure that was being put on us. And I decided that I just needed to accelerate my own game. And I was also jungling. So that's the idea behind the Midas this specific game. It's a lot about, I'm going to be farming. I don't think there's any item that makes me stronger. Diffusal's really not that good against Weaver. It's really not that great against Tusk SF and shit, because I'll just die before I can do all the damage I want. And notice how shitty this game is. But all that's going to happen is the opponent's going to proceed through the order of objectives. If I ever see somebody alone, like this Enchantress, I'm going to bully her, no matter how good or bad the game is. Push the Enchantress away. Now they've come to mid because they took my bottom tower. I'm going to play someone near just in case I can help, but then I'm going to run towards the normal farming pattern. The only difference between this and a winning game is I'm mainly looking to relieve pressure. So I see 3 heroes mid. This is one of those rare opportunities to push the bottom lane. They're taking my mid tower, so I know I can push this bottom lane out. Everything I do is about relieving pressure. So I see them invading top because they have a Weaver. I see them pushing mid because they are grouped there as 3. I'm just pushing bottom now. All I'm doing is playing away from them at all costs. PL is absolutely useless when the opponent's really far ahead. When your team is weak, your hero sucks. We're down 12-0. Notice how I'm just consistently playing the dangerous part of the map, usually, but since the opponent's so far ahead, they're actually invading top. And now, notice how I'm just kind of mirroring the opponent. The opponent makes their way towards bottom. I'm occasionally showing up. My team fucks up their spellcasting there. We almost landed our first kill of the game. 15-0, 14 minutes in. But look how passively I'm forced to play. And my whole purpose of this is eventually PL may be able to make a comeback. I'm just playing away from the opponent as much as possible. Notice how often I'm sending illusions at the creep waves to create space between the opponent and myself. Anytime somebody tries to come fuck with my farm, I just send my illusions at them. It's really annoying. It does a decent amount of damage. Once you get Diffusal, you're burning all their mana. Notice what's happening here. Every time they invade me, I just walk away. No contest. No contest. Just walk away. None of these are 1v1 scenarios. I'm not forcing fights. I'm not overextending. Unless I'm in a 1v1 scenario, I just fuck off. I just back off. Finally got my item. The opponent's literally reaping the map. They've taken 4 towers. They're about to take Roche. But everywhere they go, I just walk the opposite direction. Because most lineups that give you this issue at this stage in the game, PL will outscale them. Most lineups, he will outscale. So up until this point, we have had literally 0 opportunities to get a kill. This is the worst case scenario for PL. So we're now going to talk about hotkeys a bit. Probably should have done this earlier, but that's fine. So for PL, I use several hotkeys. I use 3 for select all units, or all other units, which would be all my illusions. I use 4 for select everything, including my hero. I use V for my Manta, and I use C for the Doppelganger illusion that is the same tankiness as my real hero. So that's really important for jukes. The hotKeying your Doppelganger illusion to C. That's really important for jukes. If I need to micro like the units around me, but not my Manta that's down a lane, I'll box select. So say I had Manta illusions down a wave, I have 4 illusions right here, and I want these to go to this camp, I would just box select them. That's all I use for controlling PL. Pretty straightforward hotkeys. You're going to see it show itself here, where I doppel, and then you send my tanky illusion away. And they chase that, and I end up getting away narrowly from a predicament that would probably otherwise lead to my death. Can literally win you games as PL if you have like 1 or 2 good jukes like that. So we've been stuck in our triangle for the entire game. We're down 23-0. We're finally going to get some kills. The opponent has overextended, and we have a defusal. They are fighting in our triangle. This is the one place we're willing to fight if we have the ability to do so. We just got our first 3 kills of the game. All we did was avoid them for literally 20 minutes in a row. We got our defusal and said, they've overextended. Time to go. It's literally PL. Same thing, rinse and repeat. I actually bought an Ag shard because it helps you clear waves. And I was worried about how scared I was to clear waves in this game. If you lance a creep wave, it will kill it with Ag shard. So Ag shard was like a budget Manta. So I did get caught for the first time in the game. Rough start there. Got blink Yules by the SF at the very end of my TP. But hey, we're going to go right back to what we were doing. Really hard PL games are all about just weathering the storm. And then eventually, if the opponent overextends, taking long fights. Notice how PL fights. We didn't get to see it much in the first game. But PL is very important to pick and choose when you're supposed to go in. I do have a Smurf replay or a Smurf educational Smurf about PL. I highly encourage you to watch how I took fights in that game as well after watching this. All the fights are me on the outskirts, not really committing until the opponent's taken enough damage and had enough mana burned such that I can then go in. That's the idea behind PL. You wear them down with your illusions, and then once they've been basically worn out from fighting your illusions, your real hero is allowed to go in. A lot of times I'll doppel on the outskirts like that just to create some space in the fight, send some illusions into them, start duplicating. And now I am just sitting in base, sitting back. This is the bad PL game. So we've seen both sides of the coin. Perfect PL games where they fuck off, and other PL games where you're literally playing cat and mouse all game. Notice how I'm consistently pushing to relief pressure rather than anything else. Trying to get my team to like deward the area that I want to farm. But none of it's happening. This is the kind of stuff you might see in some of your bad PL games. Notice how patient I am on the outskirts, using Doppelganger to disjoint key abilities. If my team dies, as long as I'm alive, my base is not going to die. The only reason we end up losing this game is because I die where I didn't want to buy back. And we end up getting like triple raxed. But notice how if PL's alive, he keeps the game going. This game looks disastrous. It looks like the worst game possible, but I'm still getting farm. I'm still having impact in these fights, and the enemy still can't end. If I had played absolutely flawlessly from this point on, we would have won this game. And that's what matters to me whenever I'm playing heroes like PL. And it's the emphasis that they're going to chase you around. The deciding factor, every hero is a bit different when it comes to what a good game and a bad game looks like. In a bad game, or in a good game, you saw it. I was 2-0-2. Enemy team didn't fuck with me at all. That's going to be my kill score like 25 minutes into the game. In a bad game, I know it looks similar, 3-1-2, but the opponent's been literally running at me for the last 20 minutes, if you've watched it, right? They've been invading my farm all game. So if you can be in a hard game like this and still manage to accrue a kill score of 3-1-2, especially when the kill score is 8-35, it doesn't really matter. But that's the dream for PL. You're trying to create these 1v1s. You're trying to identify people who are by themselves, alone, and you're going to punish them for it. Similar to PA in that regard when it comes to fights. You know, you're trying to take crazy, convoluted, one guy over here, one guy over there fights. PL does not just march into 4 heroes. That just very rarely happens. The only time you march into 4 heroes as PL is when you've got like Heart Abyssal and you're unfucking killable. Other than that, you're just not doing it. Heart is for buildings, while items like Abyssal and Scotty are for kill threat. So when you're looking to decide after this point, whether or not you're going Abyssal or Heart or Scotty. Scotty is for like the ranged heroes that you want to slow down and bring them down that way, which in this case I don't think is good because SF will just kill me. Abyssal is for the similar idea, but you're using it with a disable. And then Heart is for when you want to take this portion of the game to take a lot of objectives. And since we're so far behind here, I'm not going to go Heart. But if the game was closer, if we were maybe in reverse spots here, I would definitely go Heart in order to take the buildings. So yeah, I use these two examples of PL, hopefully to give you some decent grasp of like what I'm thinking during my games, as well as like a good and bad situation for PL. I think all it is conceptualizing what makes a hero weak and strong, and what they can't deal with themselves. That's really it for me when it comes to the PL guide. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and let me know in the comments and all that kind of stuff what you guys thought. If you liked this video, please like, comment, subscribe to the YouTube channel, all that shenanigans, because at the end of the day, YouTube does care about that. You may not care about it, I may not care about it, but the YouTube algorithm does. So please do.